Now tuned into the greatest.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The best sports podcast there is.
Yes, sir. You heard it here first. The best sports podcast there is, all the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. We got a great episode here for you today on May 2nd, 2022. We heard some breaking news right before the show started, so we'll touch on that. We're going to throw that into there. We got a segment about it later, so stick with us. Got some great things here, but before we jump into it, you know how I like to do it. Always touching on the news. So that'll be the first thing we touch on before we get started. But let's go ahead and run into the news. So starting off with the Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid is out indefinitely with an orbital fracture, which is around his eye, and a concussion. He will not travel with the team in Game 1 and Game 2 of this conference semifinal series, and his return is unknown at this time. Now, Kyle Lowry of the Miami Heat will also be out for the start of this series between the 76ers and the Miami Heat due to his hamstring, and he also has no estimate of his return at this time. Now, the breaking news we heard was Rudy Gobert. He will tell the Utah Jazz to trade him or Donovan Mitchell per Sean O'Connell of Serious. Now, I'll fuss out the details a little bit later in our segment, but as of right now, that's all I'm going to leave you with. So let's touch on the scores from yesterday's games on May 1st. The Milwaukee Bucks, they walked all over the Celtics in Game 1 of this series, winning 101-89. It was a pure beatdown. Although the score didn't reflect it at times, Milwaukee had control just about the whole entire game. But the Golden State Warriors, they stole Game 1 away from the Memphis Grizzlies in a down-to-the-wire win, 117-116. Now the Warriors, they got a last-minute stop to beat the Grizzlies. They forced Ja Morant to miss a layup coming full speed at the end of the game. It was actually a very, very nice play that they drew up. It just so happened that Ja Morant missed the layup because it was good defense. Now this game here was a huge steal for the Golden State Warriors. And I say that because they truthfully should not have won Game 1. Forget all of that. Oh, they stole a game from the Grizzlies at home, or they get to set the tone for the series. No, this is not how you want to set the tone. They did not play a good game of basketball, and it says a lot when one team plays a bad game while the other team plays their best game but still can't get a win. That tells a lot right there. Warriors, they struggled to make shots all game, particularly Steph and Klay Thompson. Klay was broke all game, shot 6 for 19. He made 1 3 when it mattered, I will say that. Steph was broke most of the game, shot 8 for 20, had 24 points. Klay was missing late game free throws and clutch moments. He blew 2 of them. Oh my gosh. So if Ja would have made that layup, that would have been game because he blew those 2 free throws. They lost Draymond Green in the second quarter, and they needed him desperately because he's the defensive stopper. Draymond Green is literally the heart and soul of this team's defense, especially when you look at it in the paint. When you focus on the paint protection, it's all Draymond Green. It don't get no better than that. But they lost Draymond Green in the second half. I didn't think it was going anywhere. And because of that, Memphis, they got into the lane a lot. They did their thing in the lane. They took advantage of him not being there. And we know that wouldn't have happened if Draymond Green was playing. But despite all of this bad play and all of these negative things I just pulled from the Warriors, they still kept the game within about 10 points just through the whole entire game. The largest lead was only 13 points, and that was early on. But they kept in striking distance, stayed at 7, 10, 6, whatever the case was, and they just stayed there and focused. But now, although they played bad, and this is another thing here too, they shot terrible, and they didn't have Draymond Green. But yet they still had a higher field goal percentage than the Memphis Grizzlies. They out-rebounded the Memphis Grizzlies with no Draymond Green, 51-47. And you might hear all of this and think, well, damn, if the Warriors played so bad, well, how did they even lose this game? I mean, you saying the Warriors shot terrible, they ain't had Draymond. How did they lose this game? Did the Grizzlies play bad or what? No. They did not. That's just it. That's just it. And that's why I bring this up, because the Grizzlies literally played one of their best games I've witnessed this entire postseason. Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. combined for almost 70 points. And I've never seen Jaren Jackson shoot the ball the way he did in game one. That was absolutely crazy the way he was pulling threes. In Memphis, they played really good as a unit, playing inside and out and going to the paint, easily getting buckets with no Draymond Green there. They played a great game. It's just the Warriors are much better as a unit. And it's that simple. Warriors, they demonstrated their playoff and championship experience. It shows the difference in skill level. When I talk about all through the regular season, when I talk about, oh, well, I don't think this team is going to do much because they don't have playoff experience, this is what I'm talking about. This is how you win a game when nothing is working for you. You rely on that playoff experience and you keep in mind that, okay, we can still win this game regardless of what's going on. We've been in this situation before. We know what we got to do to make sure we can still pull this game off despite missing clutch free throws, despite not being able to make open threes, Steph and Clay, despite letting the other team expose your paint play after play. That is exactly how you show that this team can come together. That is a fine demonstration of playoff experience, because there's no other reason that they should have won this game. It came down to the wire, and obviously it could have went either way, and we could possibly be having a different conversation. But whether the Warriors lost or whether the Warriors won last night, either way, they played a bad game, but they just so happened to get lucky and sneak out of there with the win. And it's really that simple. They just happened to sneak out of there. They took advantage. They played defense that absolute last possession, and they ended up getting a stop. And that was it. But they didn't get rattled. They kept shooting no matter what. And they proved that they can still win despite having a tough offensive night. And they tried to get buckets as much as they could. Jordan Poole helped out a lot. He was huge for the Warriors. But the Warriors, they're not the Timberwolves. Timberwolves was just giving away leads. They were giving away games late game down the stretch, but that's not the case at all. Overall, we're going Warriors in 5 easily, and that's me being lenient. I just don't think this Memphis Grizzlies team can compete with the Golden State Warriors, especially when the Warriors are at full strength and playing good basketball. Now, let's go ahead and jump into a quick break. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll touch on this Rudy Gobert subject as well. We got some more news. We got a little NFL news coming up as well. Just a little big trades that happen around the NFL draft. So we'll touch on that in just a second as well. But let's go ahead and get into this break, and we'll be right back. Now, you know, just because you're busy doesn't mean you got to be stressed. I'm crazy busy right there with you, but it can be easier. Next time you're on a run, just make it more fun and listen to The Run with Manny Wilson.
Now tuned into the greatest.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The Run, the Manny Wilson podcast.
The best sports podcast there is.
Yes, sir. You heard it here first. The best sports podcast there is. Now let's go ahead and run back to some news that we were talking about, starting off with the NFL. The Tennessee Titans traded wide receiver A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles for pick number 18 in the 2022 NFL Draft. The Baltimore Ravens traded their star receiver as well, Marquise Hollywood Brown, to the Buffalo Bills for pick number 23 in the draft. And moving on to the NBA, the matchups that we have for tonight. Tonight we have the Miami Heat taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. No Joel Embiid, no Kyle Lowry as well due to his hamstring injury. And the Dallas Mavericks, they'll battle it out against the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix for game 1 of the second round. And congrats to Devin Booker for coming back healthy, although he played in game 6. but I'm happy to see him back. This will be a good series here. And going forward, that's all we got for the news right now. So let's go ahead and jump into the segment. Let's do it. Rudy Gobert, he allegedly told the Utah Jazz to trade him or Donovan Mitchell per Sean O'Connell. But it's not so alleged because Sean O'Connell says it happened. Now, this was reported by Sean O'Connell and also Yahoo Sports. Now, here's the full breakdown of what happened and everything in the series of tweets that this was reported in. So here we have Sean O'Connell. He stated in a series of tweets, starting off with, I know I'm usually not, I know I am not usually Utah Jazz breaking news guy, but a source close to the situation has informed me that Rudy Gobert is at him or me point with Donovan Mitchell and would demand that one of them be traded in next few days. Doesn't feel they will win a championship together. And then he followed up on that tweet. I quote one more time. Rudy Gobert feels that his own numbers are consistent or getting better, while Don is D liability and is falling off in terms of explosiveness. Gobert also aware of at least one Western Conference power that would be willing to pay handsomely for his abilities. Now, I didn't like the way Donovan Mitchell was disrespected in this because, one, Rudy Gobert has no room to talk. When you don't have any offensive skill set, you have no room to talk at all. But I'm not going to disrespect Rudy Gobert to an extent that other people are already going to do anyway. That's not why I'm here. But I say Donovan Mitchell, he has to stick around. Donovan Mitchell absolutely has to stick around. But this could be a great move for both of them. And I think all parties involved, with Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, they all can possibly benefit from this. But the smartest move, with no question, is shipping Rudy Gobert. Now, there's a few reasons why the Utah Jazz and both individuals will benefit from this. Utah Jazz first, this clears up a ton of money. It clears up a ton of money. They're overpaying Rudy Gobert like he is something much more than what he is. Right now, he's on a contract for 5 years for $205 million. And he's in his second year. But to put this in perspective, Giannis Antetokounmpo is getting paid $228 million for 5 years, and he is the best in the NBA. So Rudy Gobert probably shouldn't be nowhere near close to that. And I understand it's a difference in there, but they're paying him $205 million to do what exactly? Rebound? Play paint defense? Okay, cool. Block shots, but still get tossed around by these other skill centers in the league. When you touch a Nikola Jokic or a Joel Embiid, you still get tossed around. So, is that included in the paycheck as well? Oh, yeah, let's not forget now. His offensive skill set is non-existent. If Rudy Gobert has you in the post, we count that as a turnover. We going the other way. So, what were they really getting out of this $205 million that they decided to pay him anyway? And I'm not even really trying to clown Rudy Gobert. I'm just saying, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And anyone who gets paid that much money should bring more than just paint defense, because he can't play defense outside of the paint, as we've seen in his previous series here. But yet he wants to talk about how Donovan Mitchell is a defensive liability and so on. And so, no, we're not doing that. But Utah Jazz, they win because they clear up some money shipping Rudy Gay out. And this is a win for Donovan Mitchell because they may be able to bring someone in that has more skill set all around. I take a person who has half the defensive skill set that Rudy Gobert has, or half the defensive skill set that Rudy Gobert has, and give me some offensive skill set. Even if you could just stand in the corner, shoot a three like a Brook Lopez, give me an undersized center, I'll take it. Because we look at Draymond, he has just as much as an impact in the paint as Rudy Gobert, and he's still providing much more to a team. He's still bringing so much to a team other than just playing paint defense. He can guard guards for a few moments or a possession if he really needs to on occasion. He can play around screens. He can distribute the ball. PJ Tucker, he can knock down a three. He plays big boy ball down in the paint. There's a couple of guys I would take in terms of if I had to replace Rudy Gobert, that brings me some offense. And I think that's what they really need to do in order to help Donovan Mitchell capitalize on this opportunity of either Rudy Gobert leaving or them bringing someone else in. But with that being said, too, Donovan Mitchell, he benefits from that point. He can get a more skillful center in. And Rudy Gobert, he benefits as well, simply for the fact that if there's one conference or one top-tier Western Conference team actually interested in him, if they have the guys, the offensive weapons to take care of the scoring load and take care of the distributing, Rudy Gobert can possibly be in good hands because it allows him to play to the best of his own skill set, which is rebounding, playing paint defense, not necessarily perimeter defense, but playing paint defense, getting rebounds, giving the ball to the guard, and just running up the floor. Maybe catching a few alley-oops and putting the ball back in the hoop after a dunk. But other than that, he needs those core guys and those weapons to help him get to that point to be able to play to his strength. When you look at Andre Drummond, he was a guy who didn't have much success in Detroit because they didn't have the pieces to allow him to utilize his strengths. They wanted him to be a scorer, and they wanted him to do something that he's not, which made him look even worse. Whereas Rudy Gobert, he can actually look more flawless and look more efficient, look like a better player if he's around guys that are offensive threats and allow him to just only have to play defense. The Utah Jazz, they're not built like that. They don't have that many offensive weapons where Rudy Gobert doesn't have to contribute on the offensive end outside of just getting a rebound and kicking it back out or getting a rebound and throwing it back in. But yeah, I think it would be a good move ultimately to get Rudy Gobert out of there. Something has to change. Utah has been in the playoffs consecutively these last few years, but they haven't really done anything. So something definitely has to change within this team. All right. And that is all we have for you guys today, man. I greatly appreciate you tuning in and joining us. Be sure to go ahead and send this episode to a friend or family member, cousin, auntie, brother, nephew, uncle, anyone. They may enjoy it. You had fun on the run, so you might as well let them enjoy it as well. Be sure to follow us on Instagram as well at The Run Podcast. Follow my personal Instagram at I am Manny Wilson. And we will be back later on this week, and so on and so on and so on.